Hi you guys. So I had some technical difficulties when trying to film this. So this is my second time trying to film this. So some things are just already going to be done rather than me doing it on the page with you, but that's okay. We're still going to make it work. Just make sure that you're following along with me as I kind of explain what everything is to you. So go ahead and grab your IJs. Okay. And at the very top of your IJ, you're going to write today's date. That's 4-20-21. This 4-20-21. Let's see if we can get this to work. My lighting's been messing with me today. It doesn't really want to. Here we go. Okay. So today's date is 4-21-20, okay? And today we're going to be talking about time. And I know that that sounds a little bit silly because on your MobyMax, I have you guys working on measurement, but I did that on purpose. So last week we talked, not last week, but the week before last week, we talked about measurement, and now I want you guys to do some assignments on measurement so I can check your understanding. This week we're going to talk about time, and then next week you guys are going to do some time stuff on MobyMax. So you guys are going to do a little bit of measurement stuff on MobyMax. We're going to talk about time this week for our YouTube videos. Just don't let that be too confusing. Okay, so first of all, we're going to be talking about two different types of clocks. We use clocks to tell time, and there are two different types of clock. This is just more trouble than it's worth. There we go. There's two different types of clocks that you guys might see. Okay, the first one is a digital clock, like you guys might see on my watch, where it just tells the time. Or you guys might see it on a phone as a really popular place for you guys to see an a digital clock. And a digital clock just tells you the time. Like, for example, when I was first filming this video, it was 9:01. My clock said 9:01. That's what my clock looked like. Okay, digital clock just tells you the time. Now there's another type of clock. We actually have one of these in our classroom, and you might actually have them in your home too. And that's called an analog clock. Analog is spelled A-N-A-L-O-G, analog clock. And those are any clocks that you see that have the numbers that go all the way around them, and these two little arrows or two little sticks that might pop out of your clock. Okay? So I am going to have you guys copy this down, so pause the video, copy all of this down. You'll also notice that in the corner here I just wrote time. I did that so that when I'm flipping back through my IJ, I know exactly where my notes on time are, because I wrote time right in the corner. Okay, so make sure that you copy all of that down. I know I'm going fast, but I'm not having to write it down, so sorry. And then once we do that, whatever is left on your page, you should have about half of your page in your IJ left. We're going to draw a huge analog clock. Okay, since digital clocks are pretty easy and just tell you the time, when we're talking about time, we're mostly going to be talking about analog clocks. So down here, I want you guys to draw a big analog clock. So 12 goes at the top, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, back to 12. Okay. Now in the middle of your clock, just write a big old dot so I know that's the middle of your clock. And you'll notice that there are two arrows that are coming out of our clock. Okay, one is a shorter one and one is a longer one. These are called clock hands. Okay, the front of the clock is called the clock face, and on the clock face, the clock has hands. Now, the clock doesn't have two hands that are the same length like we do. We have two hands or two arms that are the same length. But clocks don't have that. They kind of have like one short one and one really long one. Okay? Now, the shorthand, that's what we're going to call this, the shorthand will tell you the hour. So for example, this shorthand is pointing pretty close to that number 1. So that means it must be 1 o'clock. Okay? Shorthand tells you the hour. The longhand tells you how many minutes past the hour. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over, hopefully you got all that down. I'm going to flip to the next page. I'm going to write exactly what I just said. Okay? The shorthand tells us the hour, And the longhand tells us how many minutes past the hour. I know it's a lot of writing, so I'm going to leave that up there for a little bit. Again, make sure that you're pausing me when you need to. Shorthand tells us the hour. Longhand tells us how many minutes past the hour. And I drew a little star or a little snowflake, whatever you want to call it, right next to shorthand because that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Okay, the number one thing that you need to know for this lesson is that the shorthand on the clock tells you the hour. The shorthand on the clock tells you the hour. If the shorthand is pointing to the 1, it's 1 o'clock. If the shorthand is pointing to the 9, it's 9 o'clock. If the shorthand is pointing to the 2, it's 2 o'clock. Okay, number one thing to know for this lesson, shorthand, whatever it's pointing to, tells you the hour. So once you pause this, once you have this all down, you guys are going to go ahead and grab your Go Math book. That's this one right here. And you guys are going to find page 169. 169. Okay, page 169. And it's going to look like this. Let's see if my lighting wants to help me out. There we go. It's just going to have a bunch of clocks on it, just like this. Page 169. And our instructions over here, don't copy this down just yet. Listen to the instructions first. Our instructions here are pretty simple. They say look at where the hour hand points. What number does it point to? And write the time. That's all that we're going to be doing today. Looking at where the shorthand points and saying what the time is. They even made it easy for us and didn't even give us a longhand. We're not worrying about the longhand yet. We're just looking at the shorthand. Okay, so for this first one, number 1, I saw that the shorthand was pointing to the number 2. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you could write the time. You could write 2 o'clock, literally writing down O and clock. Or you could write it just like you would see it on your phone or on my watch, 2 o'clock, with 2 dots right here and 2 zeros afterwards. You only have to write it one of these ways. Doesn't matter which way, you get to choose. Number 2, I noticed it was pointing to the 9, so I said, it's 9 o'clock. Number 3, I noticed it was pointing to the 12, so I said 12 o'clock. Okay, so 4, 5, and 6 down here you guys can probably do on your own, right? Like this is pointing to what number? 5, it's probably going to be 5 o'clock. This one's pointing to what number? It's probably that o'clock. Okay, so you guys are going to do 4, 5, and 6 all by yourselves. And then at the very bottom, this one is kind of a challenge one. This one you can do if you want to. Okay, so this one says which one is not the same. At the bottom, the one in the box says which one is not the same. And it gives you some times and it gives you some clocks. And I want you to tell me which one does not belong. So I will give you the hint of saying that all of these are a way to say 7 o'clock, except one of them. I want you to find out which one doesn't belong, which one doesn't say 7 o'clock. I want you guys to circle that one, okay? That's your challenge one. The only ones you're required to do are ones 4, 5, and 6. So again, look at the shorthand. What is it pointing to? Tell me what time it is for 4, 5, and 6. Okay? Other than that, make sure that you're staying on top of your Moby Max. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!